The universe had always seemed vast and impersonal to Dr. Nara Innes. As a xenobiologist at the prestigious Galactic Interspecies Academy, GISA, she spent her days studying the intricate lives of alien species. Her work focused on lesser-known creatures, those few and far-between species that often slipped through the cracks of mainstream scientific inquiry. But this latest project, Humanity, was about to take her on a journey she could never have expected. Dr. Innes was known for her pragmatism. She wasn't swayed by idealism or patriotic fervor for any particular species. Her drive was purely scientific curiosity. When the Academy assigned her to teach an advanced xenobiology class, she expected little more than the usual academic rigor and an assortment of fascinating but unremarkable species. However, this semester was different. For the first time in over a century, a human student had been accepted to GISA. His name was Mark Anderson. Humanity had always been a curious case. Despite their fascinating evolutionary history, humans were largely considered biologically unremarkable when compared to the dazzling array of species found across the galaxy. Their planet, Earth, was located on the very edge of the known universe, and while they were capable of incredible feats of survival, their technology lagged far behind most galactic civilizations. Humans were seen as primitive, their contributions seen as minimal. So when Mark walked into the class as the only human among a group of students from highly advanced species, he stood out not for his intelligence, but for his odd, almost misplaced presence. Mark was, however, a brilliant student. He was curious and sharp, eager to learn. But what made him particularly unique was the strange stories he would share about his homeworld, Earth. He would talk about humanity's resilience, about surviving in harsh environments, and about how humans seem to adapt to nearly every obstacle thrown their way. He often spoke with pride about how humanity survived their planet's constant turmoil and how they had thrived despite overwhelming odds. Despite his brilliance, his peers dismissed him, seeing his tales as mere exaggeration. After all, how could a species with rudimentary technology and limited spacefaring abilities compete with civilizations that had perfected interstellar travel, advanced energy systems, and multi-dimensional technologies? The notion that a species from a backwater planet could have any significant relevance in a galactic academy was laughable. Still, Dr. Innes paid close attention. It was her job to consider every possibility, no matter how strange or unlikely. But even she couldn't have predicted what would happen next. One day, during their regular xenobiology lab session, Dr. Innes introduced her class to a rare specimen, an alien plant from the Qatar system. This plant was infamous across the galaxy for its deadly toxins. Its poison was so potent that it could kill almost any living creature within minutes. The task for the class was to observe the plant's chemical structure and determine which, if any, known species could resist or metabolize the toxins. The students began their analysis, eagerly discussing the plant's complex properties. But Dr. Innes noticed something unusual. Mark Anderson raised his hand. "I'll try it," he said, his voice calm. The room fell silent. Dr. Innes was taken aback. "You want to try eating it?" she asked, unsure if she had heard correctly. Mark nodded. "Humans have a unique digestive system. We can handle a lot more than most species think." His words, though simple, carried an air of confidence. Intrigued and a little skeptical, Dr. Innes reluctantly agreed to allow Mark to proceed with a small piece of the plant. She watched, puzzled, as he carefully broke off a portion and ate it. The other students stared, some in shock, others in amusement. But Mark showed no immediate signs of distress. He stood there, his face impassive, and waited. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. No convulsions, no distress signals. Mark simply looked. Fine. A wave of unease swept through the room. Dr. Innes watched closely as Mark's body seemed to process the toxins. His pulse remained steady, his breathing unlabored. Then, within moments, his body began to respond to the chemicals in the plant in ways that defied explanation. The toxins, which would have killed most species in seconds, were broken down in his system as if they were nothing more than simple nutrients. The room remained still as Dr. Innes took a deep breath, her mind racing. Humans could not only survive toxic environments, but their bodies could adapt rapidly, and in ways other species could not. It wasn't just a matter of survival, it was something deeper. Humans seemed capable of digesting and metabolizing almost anything. This was no simple biological oddity. This was a survival mechanism that went beyond anything she had ever seen. The class had been told to observe how different species interacted with the K-tar plant. Yet, it was Mark Anderson, a human from an insignificant, unknown corner of the galaxy, who had shown them something no one had ever expected. Humans weren't just resilient. This discovery unsettled Dr. Innes. Her mind raced with questions. Why had humans evolved in this way? What was this extraordinary ability? Was it an accident of nature, or had some unknown force played a hand in shaping their biology? She found herself staring at Mark in a new light. No longer just a curiosity, he had become the key to an entirely new understanding of evolution. And yet, despite the awe and wonder of the moment, a cold knot formed in Dr. Innes's stomach. This wasn't just an academic breakthrough. This discovery could change everything. Humanity was not merely a species to study, they were something far more significant than anyone had realized. And the galaxy might not be ready for what that meant. Dr. Nara Innes had never anticipated the storm her discovery would cause. What began as a routine class experiment had now spiraled into a political, social, and scientific mess that she struggled to contain. Humanity's extraordinary adaptability, once a simple curiosity, had become the center of a galactic debate. And this debate wasn't just about science, it was about power. The discovery of Mark Anderson's unique ability to digest even the most toxic substances had caught the attention of more than just the xenobiologists at GISA. It had caught the eye of politicians, military officials, and factions within the Academy itself. Some saw humanity's adaptability as a biological anomaly to be studied for its potential medical and scientific benefits. Others saw it as a tool, a weapon that could be harnessed for galactic domination. And then, there were those who feared a species with such an ability could become a threat, unlike any other in the galaxy. A human capable of surviving any environment could conquer any world, overpower any foe. Within GISA, the academic community had fractured. The once enthusiastic discussions about humanity's place in the galaxy had turned into debates over whether humanity should be allowed to continue its education among the stars or if they were too dangerous to be trusted with the secrets of galactic advancement. Some professors, including Dr. Innes, felt it was their duty to preserve knowledge and treat humanity like any other species, to educate them, learn from them, and to guide them toward mutual understanding with other civilizations. Others, however, argued that this could lead to a tipping point in the balance of power across the galaxy, and that humans should be closely monitored, if not confined to their home planet entirely. Dr. Innes, once a staunch advocate for unbiased scientific inquiry, found herself trapped between these opposing forces. The questions surrounding humanity's adaptability were no longer academic. They were deeply entangled with politics. She could feel the weight of it all, a burden that grew heavier with every passing day. Her relationship with Mark became strained, as his growing confidence in his own abilities began to shift the dynamic between them. He wasn't just a student anymore. He was a symbol of something much larger, something that no one fully understood. At first, Mark had been an outlier among the other students, an anomaly in a sea of incredibly advanced alien minds. But now, as his abilities continued to manifest in unexpected ways, his status shifted from curious oddity to something more dangerous. His peers, who had once been fascinated by his strange stories of Earth, now viewed him with suspicion. They no longer saw him as just another student, but as a ticking time bomb of unpredictable power. He was being watched, scrutinized, even whispered about behind closed doors. Mark's once sociable nature began to turn inward as the stress of the situation mounted. He had always known that humanity was different, that Earth was home to a species with untapped potential. Now that his abilities were on full display, he couldn't help but feel an increasing sense of pride. But it was also a sense of pressure, a pressure to prove that humanity deserved to be recognized on the galactic stage. He began to believe that humanity's place among the stars wasn't just a right, it was their destiny. One afternoon, Dr. Innes received a confidential visit from a group of influential political figures within the Galactic Council. These individuals had been observing Mark's progress with growing interest. They were part of a covert faction who saw humanity's adaptability not as a marvel of biology, but as a tool to be weaponized. They wanted to use Mark and, by extension, all of humanity to create a new kind of soldier, one who could survive any poison, any chemical, any toxic environment. They envisioned humans as the perfect assets for warfare, able to endure any kind of biological or chemical assault without losing effectiveness in battle. Dr. Innes was appalled. She had spent her career studying the natural world and had always believed in the ethical responsibility of scientists to safeguard the well-being of the species they studied. But these individuals, some of whom had once been her allies, now offered her a choice that sent chills down her spine: cooperate with their plans, and they would ensure her future within the Academy, with power and influence beyond what she had ever imagined. Refuse, and she would be silenced, her career and research crushed under the weight of political pressure. The choice was clear: betray her scientific principles or align herself with a dangerous agenda. A T first. She rejected their offer outright, but their persistence wore her down. Every day, she received more warnings, threats veiled in the promise of greater opportunities. As the weeks wore on, Dr. Innes found herself isolated, increasingly distrustful of her colleagues, and caught between her responsibility to Mark, to humanity, and to the future of galactic peace. She wasn't sure how much longer she could remain neutral. Mark's growing awareness of his potential only added to the strain. The more he learned about his abilities, the more he began to think of them not just as an oddity, but as a power that could shift the balance of galactic politics. He spoke less about Earth and more about humanity's potential role in the galaxy. His words, once humble and focused on learning, had taken on a new tone, one of pride and, at times, arrogance. "We're not just survivors anymore," he began to say in class. "We can be leaders. We can shape the future. Why should we be content with the scraps when we have the power to take control?" Dr. Innes found herself grappling with an unexpected dilemma. She had once seen Mark as an innocent student, a promising young human who had potential, but now she saw him as a growing symbol of the conflict she had tried so hard to avoid. Mark was no longer just a student. He had become a beacon of humanity's hidden power, a power that some sought to exploit, while others feared. The lines between mentor and student, between ethical responsibility and personal ambition, began to blur. As Dr. Innes navigated the rising tensions within the Academy and the Galactic Council, she began to realize that the question was no longer just about humanity's place in the galaxy. It was about what humanity was capable of becoming. Could they be trusted to wield their newfound power responsibly, or would they become a force so dangerous that even their creators could not control them? The galaxy, it seemed, was on the brink of a shift, and Dr. Innes wasn't sure whether she should guide humanity through this uncertainty or hold them back before it was too late. Dr. Nara Innes never thought that her years of careful study, meticulous research, and unshakable principles would bring her to the brink of a moral abyss. Her journey began with a simple curiosity about humanity's seemingly unremarkable biology. But now, after a shocking discovery, the galaxy itself seemed to teeter on the edge of an irreversible shift. The catalyst for this change came when Dr. Innes unearthed a series of forgotten relics, ancient artifacts, buried beneath the surface of a long-abandoned planet. These artifacts were unlike anything she had encountered before: complex symbols, encoded messages, and remnants of genetic research far beyond the scope of any known species. After painstakingly deciphering the information within the relics, Dr. Innes stumbled upon a revelation that turned her world upside down. The truth was far more unsettling than she could have imagined. Humanity was not a product of natural evolution. It was the result of an ancient, long-forgotten experiment. The creators of this experiment, an extinct species known only through fragmented records, had engineered the human race as a tool for survival. The ability to digest virtually anything, an ability that had so astounded the galaxy, had been intentionally programmed into humanity's DNA. But the creators' plan had backfired. The intended purpose of humanity's engineered adaptability was clear. It had been designed to survive in the harshest conditions imaginable. Perhaps they had hoped that humans would be the perfect explorers, able to withstand the most toxic atmospheres or the deadliest poisons, making them ideal candidates for galactic conquest or colonization. However, for reasons unknown, the creators had abandoned their project long before they could harness humanity's full potential. Humanity, left to evolve in isolation, had never known the true origin of their exceptional traits. Dr. Innes was stunned. The implications were profound. What she had once seen as a biological anomaly was now something far more dangerous. Humans were not merely survivors, they were an experiment engineered with a specific purpose in mind. But for what? And who had created them? The creators, the architects of this long-lost experiment, had vanished millennia ago, leaving only the remnants of their work scattered across forgotten worlds. No one knew where they had gone or why they had abandoned humanity's evolution. But the evidence was undeniable. As she pieced together the puzzle, Dr. Innes realized that the discovery posed more than just a scientific dilemma, it was a moral and political time bomb. Humanity was no longer just a curiosity. They were the product of a calculated, long-term design, and the implications of that fact reached far beyond the walls of GISA. Dr. Innes knew that the galactic community was already uneasy about humanity's potential, and this new revelation would only intensify their fears. The elite powers of the galaxy, those who held the reins of influence, would see humanity as a weapon, a force to be exploited, or worse, a threat to the fragile balance of power that had existed for millennia. Mark Anderson, too, was changed by this revelation. As he continued to grapple with his growing understanding of his species' potential, he became more vocal about humanity's place in the galaxy. Mark had always been different from his peers. His human pride and ambition were unrestrained. As the knowledge of humanity's engineered origins became more widely known, Mark began to see humanity's power not as a mere accident of evolution, but as a gift. A gift that, in his mind, was meant to be used. He rallied other humans both on the Academy campus and across the galaxy who recognized their species' potential. No longer content with being seen as a subjugated species or a mere oddity among the stars, Mark began to push for a new vision of humanity. He spoke of a galaxy in which humans were not just survivors or observers, but active players in the larger cosmic drama. Humanity, he argued, had been engineered for greatness, and it was time for them to claim their rightful place at the table. Mark's growing influence sparked unrest among the galaxy's elite, who had already viewed humanity's adaptability with suspicion. They feared the very potential that Mark embraced. For centuries, the galaxy had operated under a delicate equilibrium, with each species maintaining a balance of power. Now, humanity armed with the knowledge of its true origins was threatening to upend that balance. The elite factions, those in power, saw humanity's potential as a threat to everything they had worked to preserve. They couldn't allow a species born of manipulation to rise above their station. The conflict between Mark and the galaxy's elite grew more intense by the day. Mark, fueled by the belief that humanity had been created for greatness, continued to push for recognition and influence. He began to openly challenge the established galactic order, calling for humanity to be acknowledged as a force to be reckoned with. His words resonated with many, especially those who had long felt oppressed by the status quo. Humanity, once dismissed as insignificant, was now demanding a seat at the table. Dr. Innes, however, found herself caught in a moral quagmire. The more she uncovered about humanity's engineered past, the more conflicted she became. On one hand, she knew that humanity's potential for survival, adaptability, and even domination was undeniable. But on the other hand, the fact that humans had been engineered for such a purpose, the fact that they were the product of a long-abandoned experiment raised uncomfortable questions. Could humanity truly be trusted with such power? Were they the victims of a long-forgotten plan, or were they now the heirs to a destiny that they were ill-prepared to face? Dr. Innes was faced with an agonizing decision. Should she reveal the truth of humanity's origins to the galaxy? Should she expose the experiment that had shaped their very DNA, knowing that it would forever alter humanity's place in the cosmos? Or should she protect Mark and humanity from the consequences of this revelation, allowing them to evolve naturally, free from the burden of their creators' intentions? The stakes had never been higher. The galaxy was on the brink of a new era, one in which humanity would no longer be passive observers but active participants in the cosmic stage. Yet, with this new power came the uncertainty of what they would do with it. Would humanity rise to the occasion? Or would they become a force too dangerous for anyone to control? The tipping point had arrived. Dr. Innes could no longer sit on the sidelines. She had to make a choice. The truth, once revealed, could never be unlearned. And with it, the future of humanity and the galaxy hung in the balance. The truth, when revealed, shattered the galaxy's understanding of itself. Dr. Nara Innes knew that once she exposed humanity's origins, there would be no turning back. The secrets of the past, long buried under layers of scientific curiosity and political stability, were now laid bare. Humanity was not a random accident of evolution. They had been shaped for a purpose, and their evolutionary traits were the product of an ancient, forgotten experiment. It was a revelation that would have ripple effects across the galaxy, for better or for worse. The announcement was met with an uproar. The Galactic Interspecies Academy, GISA, trembled under the weight of its newfound knowledge, and the political ramifications were immediate and far-reaching. Diplomatic talks between the galaxy's most powerful factions, once harmonious and stable, now became fraught with suspicion and tension. Debates raged about the ethical implications of this discovery. Was humanity truly a tool, a weapon, or something else entirely? Some viewed them as a potential asset. Others saw them as a dangerous anomaly that needed to be contained or eliminated. For humanity, the news was both empowering and terrifying. Mark Anderson, once the lone human voice among a sea of alien students, now found himself at the center of a galactic storm. He had spent his life trying to show that humanity was more than a forgotten species clinging to the edges of the galaxy. Now, with the truth exposed, humanity's destiny seemed to lie in their hands. They were no longer the outcasts, the curious oddity. They were the inheritors of a great power. But what would they do with it? Mark stood on the precipice of a new age for humanity, one in which they were no longer content to be passive observers or victims of fate. With the ancient truth of their origins revealed, the human race began to demand its place in the galaxy. Their ability to digest and survive toxins, once thought to be a biological curiosity, now became their greatest asset. They no longer needed the permission of the galaxy's elites to survive, to thrive, or to take their place in the galactic hierarchy. But that power, too, became a double-edged sword. For the first time in centuries, humanity had a voice, but they also had enemies. Dr. Innes watched as the galaxy reacted. Some factions, particularly those with a long-standing distrust of humanity, began to mobilize. They saw the human race as an existential threat, a species capable of surviving even the deadliest poisons, toxins, and environment's traits that could be used for war, domination, or something darker. These factions, in their fear and paranoia, began to form alliances with one another, plotting to suppress humanity before they could become a force that could not be controlled. At the same time, others sought to exploit humanity's newfound power. They saw potential in the human race, potential that could be harnessed for war, industrial use, or as a way to eliminate their rivals. Humanity's unique ability to consume almost anything, to survive in the harshest conditions, was seen as a resource to be controlled. The more powerful factions offered promises of protection and inclusion, but all with a price. Humanity, they claimed, could join the galactic order, but only if they followed the rules set by those in power. In a way, they would be no different than the species who had kept them in the shadows for so long. Mark was not content with these offers. The more he learned about humanity's engineered origins, the more he realized that their true purpose was not to be a pawn in the galaxy's grand game. They had been made to survive and adapt, but they had never been meant to be controlled. He could feel the pull of destiny, the urge to rise above the political machinations and power struggles of the galaxy. Humanity, in his eyes, deserved more than just survival. They deserved autonomy, a future of their own making. As Mark led humanity toward this uncertain future, Dr. Innes found herself grappling with her own role in the unfolding drama. She had uncovered the truth. She had revealed the truth. But the truth, she realized, wasn't the answer. It was only the beginning of a much larger question. Had she unleashed something far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined? Had humanity truly been made for greatness? Or had they been destined to be something far darker, an unstoppable force that, once set in motion, would inevitably burn everything in its path? Dr. Innes could no longer view humanity as a mere subject of study. They were more than an experiment, more than a curiosity. They were becoming a force, one that was beyond even her understanding. She had helped uncover their origins, but now she questioned whether revealing the truth had been the right choice. Would humanity rise to the occasion, or would they be consumed by the very power that had been thrust upon them? In the final moments, as Mark stood before a crowd of humans and aliens alike, Dr. Innes saw something in his eyes, something that mirrored the very conflict she felt within herself. Mark was resolute in his belief that humanity had been given a gift to shape the galaxy as they saw fit. But as she looked at the faces around her, she saw the fear and the hope in equal measure. The galaxy, for all its diversity and complexity, was now looking to humanity for answers. But what were the answers? Had humanity truly become something greater, or had they simply become the next weapon in the ever-expanding conflict of the galaxy? Would they thrive in their newfound power, or would they be swallowed by the very forces they had hoped to overcome? The answer, Dr. Innes knew, would not come easily. It would take generations to understand what humanity had become, and even longer to see if they could live up to the potential that had been set in motion. As the galaxy watched and waited, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. No longer mere survivors, they had become the architects of their own destiny. But with this newfound power came a new set of dangers that no one, not even the creators of humanity's original design, had fully anticipated. The future, uncertain as it was, now rested in the hands of humanity. Dr. Innes, standing on the precipice of this new era, could only wonder, had they truly broken free of the chains that had bound them for so long? Or had they simply exchanged one set of chains for another, one more powerful but equally unyielding? The galaxy would soon find out, and so would humanity.